So I will start. Thank you so much. So I guess you all heard a lot about tarantulas already, and I will try to approach from a different side. But I want to present some results of a global survey about tarantula pet trade and conservation that we conducted the last year, me and Pedro. And our main goal is to know who is involved in tarantula trade and who is interested in tarantula conservation. And I will tell a little bit about this, what we found out in this survey. So I guess at this point of the symposium, you already know a lot about tarantula, but just to recap some important information. Tarantulas belong to a single family of spiders, Theraphosidae, and nowadays we have more or less 1,000 species, more than 1,000 species described, spread among 151 genera. Concerning conservation, we have just out of these 1,000 species, just 39 species evaluated in IUCN from 9 genera. Out of these 39, we have 16 on threatened categories, and out of these 16, we have 12 that had the trade considered as a threat. So inside this panorama, this scenario, like we have just few species evaluated, and most of them, they have the trade as a threat. But this is the red list. This is IUCN. That is a tool for conservation, but it's not an agreement, something that the parties have a commitment to comply with. And in this case, we have the sites, and in sites we have just 36 species and distributed in 6 genera listed on sites, and all of them in the appendix 2, meaning that the trade doesn't threat the species, but we have to take care to not become a threat. Basically, it's more or less like this, the way that it works. And our findings till now with this project, because it's related to my postdoc project about tarantula scorpion trade in social media, we found that about 300 species is being traded. And this is something that is important to explain, that from out of these 1,000 species described, only a few, like let's say a little bit more than half, we know for sure the identity. The taxonomists, they call it Theraphosidae as a taxonomic nightmare. There are few people working with that. We don't know many basic stuff like identity, ecology, habitat, distribution. So basically, we think that everything that is already known or people knows a little bit is already on the trade. This is the scenario of tarantula trade. And as our colleagues spoken before, of course, apart the biodiversity laws, when we talk about illegal tarantula trade, we have some effects in the society and science. And as Stuart has talked before, the tarantula hobby can be beyond the hobby and can affect society and science in a way. For example, just to be quick and explaining, some tarantula species are used for pharmacological studies. They are describing new medicines using venom and hemolymph of spiders. Also, we have some effects on science in the sense that some researchers are avoiding to disclosure the locality of the new species or the new populations to avoid to be poached and put in the trade. We had a case like we described this male of this endangered species last year, me, Pedro, and Rogério Bertani from Instituto Butantan, Brazil. And we decided not to disclosure the locality to avoid problems with the trade. But some days after the release of the paper, we checked, and this is an advertisement selling the same species, the spiderlings, for 250 euros each spiderling. It's a very good, let's say, very good price for a spiderling. So we conducted this survey with 12 different languages, and we had 686 people answering. and most of them were pet owners. We had a lot of researchers, around 20%, but mainly were pet owners. And that's why we decided to check what would be a hobbyist profile. So we took this 406 people that identify themselves as a pet owner, and we tried to see some characteristics. And we found out that regarding gender, more than a half of the pet owners identify themselves as male, and they are between 18 and 49 years old. So no teenagers having this as a hobby, no older people that have this as a hobby, but people like young men mainly have this as a hobby. Also, regarding the biogeographic area from the pet owners, we had a bias through the Palearctic and Arctic regions. Of course, it was expected because we know that the market in US, Canada, Mexico, and Europe is very big, so it was not a surprise. And also regarding the years in the hobby, we found out that it's quite a new hobby for many of the people that answered our survey. Less than 5 years of a hobby. Although we know that tarantula trade is being conducted since the 70s, so we know that more people or the majority of people has this as a recent hobby. And regarding the number of tarantulas, we have people having mainly from 2 to 24 animals at home, meaning that if you start with one, you basically we won't stop, and you will buy another one. And also we had some few people having more than 100 spiders at home. So it's just an average of 10 individuals at home. About the source of the species, we found out that mainly they are coming from neotropic areas, while it was totally expected because, well, most of the tarantula species comes from that area, so it was not a surprise at all, although we have coming from Afrotropical and Indo-Malayan areas as well, like with the Indo-Malayan raising the number, like recently in Facebook, at least it's very easy to find things. Another thing that we find that we found that it was very interesting is the association with another species. So we wanted to know if people had spiders, if they had another exotic pet as well. So for the people that had another exotic pet, they had mainly snakes. And so it's very interesting because it's associated with what Thais had spoken the first day of the symposium. Maybe these venoms species are very attractive because they give the owner the power, the aura of fear, and be a brave person and impress people. So it's something that is very interesting to know when we have to design conservation actions. So we can work together with herpetologists to curb the trade in a very similar way, and also to establish a connection with other talks we have today, especially with Sabrina and also with Carlos the other day, and also Adam that is talking about invasive species. We had the second place was insects, but I guess in this case, people don't have as a pet, but as food for these animals, for spiders and snakes. And here we have to say something about invasive species, because it's too easy for these animals to become invasive, like Sabrina was talking about the cockroach in South Africa. So it's something that we have to raise a flag when we are talking about tarantula trade. And it's a nice something to explore, as Sabrina was telling in her previous talk. Again, when we asked about why people started in this hobby, why they bought the first tarantula, The first reason, the main reason was because they saw something online, something that attracted their attention online. And again, we can relate this with Kate's talk about being 2 clicks away to commit some kind of crime or to buy some wildlife in internet. So it's super easy when you demonstrate some kind of interest. Internet and the engines on Facebook and other social media are leading you to read more and more, and then can lead you to buy some animal, in the case tarantulas. And also another interesting stuff is the fact that friends and relatives, they can be a very powerful influence in people. When asked about what kind of species are nice to be bought and what would be the traits that could influence the buying a tarantula, we could expect that the size would be something very interesting, to have big tarantulas at home. But size actually appeared in the 6th place after price. And the thing that was most important for the buyers was the sex of the spider, mainly because females can live longer, until 30 years old in captivity. So we can have these pets as a young adult and give to your children, basically. And also the color and the ease of purchase, meaning that people prefers to buy around the corner or for a friend, or something that doesn't require so much effort. This is a very interesting thing to know, when we plan some kind of strategy to curb wildlife trade. And where do you buy tarantulas? This was our next question. And again, online and social media appeared with a very important source of new spiders. And again, we can relate it with Adam works about online e-commerce surveillance, how important it is to develop new tools to be able to monitoring and check and curb these kind of activities. And one interesting point is that we wanted to see how the hobbyist view and how the researchers view were different, because sometimes people in the hobby see the researchers as a threat and other way around. So we wanted to check if they think about tarantula conservation in different ways. And when they asked about the best way to control the illegal trade, or the importance of controlling illegal trade, what would be a solution? The hobbies, people in the hobby basically, people in the hobby basically said that the most important thing would be to stimulate captive breeding. And then, thank you for the sign. And then it would be related what Rodrigo talked in the third day of the symposium. Captive breeding could be an interesting solution. However, when you ask it about this, the same question to researchers, they will answer you that it's important to have public education campaigns and also improve enforcement of laws more than stimulate captive breeding. So there we can see they think somehow differently about conservation. Again, when we asked about what would be the priority in conservation actions, people from the hobby said, basically, you need to support legal breeders. You need to support scientific research. That was interesting. And also protect the natural habitat. That more or less was similar to the researchers, although they don't said many things about supporting legal breedings, but instead they support and they curb the illegal trade. Just to be quick and try to wrap up my ideas, I know that I will talk a little bit more than my 15 minutes. Sorry. But just to thinking about interventions to tackle the illegal trade. In the survey, we didn't have any poachers answering, what was a pity, because we wanted to know more about this. And of course, they were afraid of being caught or something. But although, of course, the survey was anonymous, we want in our project to see the amount of money that is involved in the trade chain, and also to know how this trade chain works. And like Leanne presented for orchids, for example, like how the criminal networks is working. So just to have an idea, last week I did a course about illegal trade, and we have this activity, and I did a surveillance of 72 hours in a Facebook group of tarantulas in Brazil. And in 72 hours, I could see 17 posts selling 50 individuals of 25 different species, being 60 exclusively from the Brazilian fauna of tarantulas, so totally illegal, and only 2 on sites. And this is, the figure is the criminal network that I could see based only in one post. Of course, it's just an idea of how the trade chain works in tarantula, meaning that in tarantula trade, meaning that it's a disorganized crime. So it couldn't be considered organized crime, but a type of disorganized crime. A temporary, fluid, and non-exclusive relationship, so people buying and selling from different people, buying from the same, and buying and selling to the same person. And also, so it's very interesting because now we have an idea. From the single post, we could see that it's crossing states' borders and also crossing Brazilian borders. It's just in 72 hours, 17 posts and 1 post for doing this network. This means that the Brazilian hobbyists can trade or collect inside our own country. They don't need to take more risks buying from outside or paying more for a species. Although it's very easy to send this by post office, like brown boxing. They say they put in the boxes and just sell. So this is the, we can say more about the sustainability and traceability of the trade, as Georgina talked with us in the second day. Thank you, I saw the time. And just to have an idea, of course, no price is told on the groups, but one comment just said that a female adult of Gramosla pulchra could cost around 600 reais, more or less 90 euros, a price that can be paid for a 6-inch television in Brazil. So it's something expensive regarding Brazilian currency. So it's not a cheap thing, although of course it's not as expensive as would be with mammals. And this is interesting because when we asked about being aware of the laws, people said that mostly they are aware, partially or totally aware of the laws. So they know that they are committing crimes. They know that they are doing illicit trade. And this is what we learned with Dan in the last symposium, the last day of the symposium, about the green crimes and how to tackle that. So the traditional way of tackle the illicit trade in the enforcement side, in the regulation side, probably will not work with tarantula because people are already aware of the law, so they know they are doing crimes. So that's why we know that there are few seizures and arrestments. So that's why we can check on Wildlife Eye initiative that Roxani talked about two weeks ago, that we can just see few arrestments, few seizures, basically because people is arrested because of other animals that they trade with tarantulas. It's very easy to cross borders and to skip the x-ray and so on. So that's why we wanted to tackle the problem by a change of behavior of the consumer. And as Diogo Verissimi talked in his presentation 2 weeks ago, the consumer is the neglect group when we tackle the wildlife trade. So we wanted to change the behavior. And for this, we need to know what the consumer thinks. And that's why this survey that we did is so important. Now we know what is the profile of the consumer and we can tackle in a better way. And then we can think in ways to overcome the challenges of changing the mind of people that say it's better to keep this spider at my house because in other ways she will be killed in the nature because you are destructing the Amazon or so on. So this is very important. And this is also important to include other people, enforcement officers, lawmakers, and also people buying. And this is what, for example, Hubert talking about inclusion in conservation. We have to include everybody when we think, just not us researchers about our interests. We have to look at other people in the trade chain. And just to concluding all my talk, I want to take some lessons that we learned in so brilliant presentations that we had these 4 weeks with such like brilliant and researchers, enforcement officers, people from NGOs, people working in the field. So I guess we have a huge gap in the knowledge. We can see this in this graphic that we published last year. There are many species described that we have no idea about identity, about ecological traits, about distribution. So we need a lot of people working with basic stuff to fill these gaps. Also, we learned that we need to include all the players in our decisions and in our strategies to curb illegal trade. And we also know we need to first establish networks with all people working with similar issues, although they work with sea cucumbers, scorpions, orchids, pitcher plants, and so on. We can see similar challenges, and we can work together to shed some light in these groups and try to find a way to curb the trade. And also we need to understand how the networks in the wildlife trade works, because it's a multidimensional problem. Like it's not just a problem for the biodiversity, but also a social problem, economical problem, a healthy problem, and a cultural problem. So we need to see the problem from all these perspectives to be able to tackle in a better way. And I'm sorry for talking too much, but I needed to try to connect all the talks and say thank you, everybody, for shedding a light in this part of the tree of life that's so neglected. And now people are so much aware of the problems. And thank you so much for being with us this